Because of the existence of Dragon Ball Super, this theory actually has some validity to it. But if we were to originally use the original Dragon Ball manga and anime, this theory would be completely thrown out of the window. And this, of course, is that humans are essentially evolved Saiyans. Now, the thing that we have to understand about this theory specifically is that when we look at the animal kingdom, when two animal species are capable of breeding with each other, that means that their genetic ancestors are similar enough to a certain point where they can interbreed, which is why we can have situations like ligers and Taigons and mules, and we can keep going on further and further. But to not make this too scientific, that means that if humans and Saiyans are able to interbreed, that means that they have a similar genetic ancestor, which would mean that humans and Saiyans essentially used to be the same being. But now we get into a question of, well, where did the evolutionary line go? Did humans evolve from Saiyans, or did Saiyans evolve from humans, or did Saiyans and humans have the same genetic ancestor, just split into two different directions? There's many different cases that we can make with this theory in particular, but the one that seems to make the most sense would be that humans essentially evolved from Saiyans, because when you think about the fact that using real-life evolution and the fact that we do come from an original ape ancestor, humans have evolved to lose a lot of these particular features that Saiyans, when we look at them from a fictional point of view, still retain. If we look at the fact that Saiyans are born with tails and are capable of transforming into Ozaru, that means that they retain that more primal instinct for fighting, which is what primitive man used to do significantly more, and Saiyans also maintain their more ape-like characteristics. Now, from that point of view, it would actually make sense for humans to have evolved from Saiyans, but then the bigger question as to why this theory doesn't quite make a lot of sense is, well, if Saiyans and humans were the same original species in space, how did humans end up on planet Earth? Well, this is where Dragon Ball Super comes in, because Dragon Ball Super added a little bit of lore that makes this theory have some substance to it, and this is basically the fact that before the Saiyans were living on what was referred to as Planet Plant, they were living on Planet Sadala, and they essentially moved over to Planet Plant. Now, this theory is basically proving that Saiyans were capable of moving to another planet, which means that they had some level of technology, even if it wasn't the greatest, and when they obviously met up with the Tuffles many years later on Planet Plant, they were able to obviously improve even more technologically, but it does prove that Saiyans had to have some level of technology to even be able to move over to Planet Plant in the first place. Now, some people out there could also argue that maybe some other species allowed for the Saiyans to come over, but the point that we're trying to get at here, specifically when it comes to the Saiyans and the humans, is that originally at a certain point, the Saiyans and humans were living on a particular planet, and the humans somehow ended up on Earth. Because we have to figure out a way to prove how humans got to Earth, if they were the same original species. Now, if we also go with the theory that humans evolved from Saiyans, or that their genetics just basically branched out into two different paths, it still doesn't make logical sense how we can basically say how humans basically ended up on Earth. And the only theory that logically makes sense with this would be that the Supreme Kais that essentially created the universe basically created an original species, one that was born on planet Earth and one that was born on planet Sadala. They were the same original species, but because of environmental differences, the Saiyans evolved their way and the humans evolved their way. And that would make the most sense out of this theory, to be completely honest with you. But other than that, there's just no other way to really explain it. But if we did have to make a call and say one evolved from the other, it would make a lot more sense for humans to have evolved from Saiyans, simply because of the fact that, like humans in real life, we lost a lot of our ape-like characteristics, while Saiyans maintain a lot of their ape-like characteristics, and that would actually explain a lot more as to the development of not only the human species, but the Saiyan species.